PIs, 3 recent PIs. I will introduce them one by one. So welcome Paulo Paioti, who is a PI from the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry of the Czech Academy of Sciences. Then we have here in the room Michal Smetana from the Faculty of Social Sciences of Charles University. And then we will have one PI online. He could not come here in person, and this will be Těšina from CEITEC Masaryk University. Because one PI will be online, we decided to preferably not use Slido, not display it. So it will be preferred if you ask your questions orally so that we don't have to interrupt the PI who is online. So this is a very brief introduction. This section is called How to Write a Competitive ERC Proposal. So we asked the PIs to present their stories or their takeaways, let's say, based on their own experience, how they wrote their proposal. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Paulo for his input.
So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm humbled to be here, and of course I hope to help. I will not speak much about how to write successful proposals really, or proposals that win the grant, because, well, you know, 70 to 80% of whoever is applying to this grant is successful people that write successful proposals. So I will focus on how to maximize your chances of moving forward, how to close the doors that of your proposal that you can move forward and then be in the final discussion of which will come to details. And I think that's the goal. So I hope not to sound negative, but there will be a lot of what not to do, which is important, because you don't want to have some things that kill your proposal, because, well, as it was mentioned in the morning, so you are reading 30 proposals and you have very little time for it, and you are separating what are good or bad proposals, and sometimes, like, if you have a killer mistake, you cannot come back from it. So, and the fact that I won the grant is, I think, less relevant than the fact that I made to the interview twice in a row with different panels, which in the lottery of science, I think, is a significant achievement. So I will focus more on how to write the B1 in the CV for the B1. So the most important thing I considered when I was preparing this presentation, and this was brought up by a colleague of mine. So what helped me the most? First of all, reading successful proposals. So I was fortunate to have my hands in one successful proposal in my field of research, one that was not at all in my field of research, and one that was successful but not funded from an amazing colleague from Strasbourg. So she was not funded with the proposal that I read, but now she was eventually funded, which, you see, successfulness is not always related to making it to the end. Okay, so I very much encourage you to find ways to have your hands on successful proposals. And people will be willing to help, because you get so much help when you are preparing for this that you feel like you need to pay it back. So don't be afraid of speaking with people and asking, even directly. It's like, can you share your proposal? You will get some. All right. And I learned in the morning as well that the ERC dropped the high-risk concept, and I'm happy they did, because actually I think they never funded really high risk unless it was highly feasible as well, which one thing obviously counters the other. But what I think they always fund, and they continue to fund, are original ideas. So some of it was discussed, and I will give my take on it. And things that are high, that will have high gain, or that will potentially have high gain. So in terms of original ideas, I think for the ones, especially applying for starting grants, so do not follow your advisor, or try to stay away from it. Of course, you need to use your experiences, but usually this can be a killer. So if someone perceives that you are following the research of your advisor, so that's the end of the story. So, and it's hard, because sometimes you're a postdoc and you came up with the idea, you did the work, but I'm sorry to say you have to drop it and come with something else because it will be perceived as your advisor's idea. And I will come back to the second point, which I think is very important. Do not talk yourself out of an idea, which is from my personal experience. And I believe that, so one assessment of an original idea is, do you think your proposal will surprise anybody? So somebody will read and say, wow, so this is something that I've never seen. So immediately the person will be interested and the surprise element may be important. All right, so high gain. As also was discussed, it can be a fundamental advance or it could be real life applications or both. So, and I like a famous saying of a Czech Brazilian chemist that I'm a fan of, and he says, good science automatically generates good applications. So both of these things are connected. His name is Otto Gottlieb, by the way. And then, again, back to the point 2, do not talk yourself out of an idea. And I began in 2019 with, so I'm a chemist. So I had like reaction X, Y, and Z that I wanted to develop. And I knew it was connected to specific problems in the field. So problem X, Y, and Z. And I wrote a proposal, and I remember a faculty in France, she was not in my field, but she was in the ERC panel before, and she was like, so I read your proposal, and it looks like 500,000 ideas. They are not going to fund this concept, so you gotta be able to make it into one big concept that is easier to digest. And this was very valuable. And in this way, not only I had to think a lot in how to connect these things that were not completely, but somewhat disconnected to one concept, which led to another concept, which was maybe this could be developed into pharmaceuticals, which is something that is easy for any generalist to digest. So it's a way to address perhaps both the experts and the generalists. Okay, so, and then the third point, which is the feasibility. And I think it's really important that you may start your proposal with some general aspects that everyone will understand, but at some point, even in the B1, I encourage you to take care of how. So how you are going to do this. So at least chemists are very skeptical. You tell them, look, I will solve problem X, Y, and Z, and the immediate reaction will be how you are going to do it. And even in the B1, this can be very important. Avoid being too general, because this will not deliver the message well. So sometimes by being specific, you show that you have the experience and that you have thought about the problem for a long time. And you can't avoid, if you can have preliminary data, this is really important. And sometimes preliminary data don't need to be that much significant, because it's also subconscious that the person wants to know that, you know, you are already working on the proposal and that you have the means to keep going, given that the money will be given to you. For now moving to the CV, I believe that if someone is carefully analyzing your CV, it's likely because the proposal is already good. Otherwise, why bother, right? And then the main question the person will try to answer is, my opinion, does this person has what it takes? So this is what the CV should address. What is it, what it takes? And I think it was said in the morning as well. So it's all about scientific excellence, which I connect to the previous experiences that you have, and then to how this previous experience will allow you to develop the idea of the proposal. So do you have the experiences? And then it's up to the panel and the career to to deliver what is it, the experience and how to deliver it, and it will really depend. For example, I do not have good metrics, so I couldn't focus on metrics. So my age index is low, I do not have many citations, so I needed to focus like, look, I have done A, I have done B, and I have done C, and all those experiences will help me to deliver, to lead the proposed research. But well, you may have good metrics, and then you may go for it and say a few words. So it will really depend. But in general, I would recommend also minimizing unimportant awards, conferences, because at the end of the day, at this level, everyone will have some of this. So this is not what's going to decide, in my opinion, but rather focus on the impact. So I led the research that led to this paper, which caused impact. And again, some specifics I think are welcome in this scenario. When you are reading 30 proposals, you want to make sure that you know specifically why the person has what it takes. Mentoring is really important. If you are fortunate to have a team that is ready to go, this is really important. Again, subconscious. The panel will analyze this positively. And I also recommend writing the CV in a narrative way and try to avoid, in a way, just being boring. And I have to say, I have some things that I wrote there that I'm almost embarrassed by it. But, you know, for me, it's like to read something that starts, the story of my career involves these passions, is automatically leads to curiosity, to interest in your CV. And actually, chemistry, organic synthesis, and catalysis are pretty similar. But I put it there to deliver the message that I will have this experience. I have this experience, which is important to develop the research, and so on. So I highly recommend a narrative CV that is more written in a storytelling way, essentially. And last but not least, so very different than what was spoken in the morning, is be careful not to oversell. Yes, sure, but a much, much bigger mistake is to undersell. And I have been in the Czech Republic for a year and a half, and my impression is that underselling is more of an issue than overselling in general here. So, and underselling is hard to address because you don't know. Nobody wants to undersell, but you have to think, you have to speak with your colleagues, and sometimes it's very subtle. So this is going to be like some words that you write, let's say can or might rather than will, or you know, it comes in various forms, and usually it's other people that will help you to see that you are underselling yourself. So it happened to me, my postdoctoral advisor, and I didn't know. He was like, you are clearly underselling this chemistry. And I had no idea. And then when I thought about what he said and the words that I was using, my body language, it clearly becomes apparent that it is true. So be careful not to undersell. And I look forward to the discussion that will follow. Thank you.
So the next speaker will be Michal Smetana.
Working? Hello, everyone. Ah, perfect. Can we get slides? Ah, perfect. So this is a very short story of what I did in my grant proposal. Obviously, it's very challenging for me to give some more general advices because my data point is one single. I proposed a project and it was funded. So obviously, I can give you some experience, but it may happen that some of these advices will not turn out to be that great with another commission that you will encounter, another reviewer, another field. I believe that there are some general principles, as Daniel Strakoš said before, but but still, I mean, as long as humans are involved and different researchers have different standards, ideas, there will be some differences. But I will try to focus on things that were positively reviewed in my case, and that I got a nice feedback also from other ERC grantees. And I would like to say that I agreed with most of what has been said before, so I will try not to repeat these points and provide something new. So very quickly, I proposed a grant that was just funded. I received the news this summer. It's a grant in social sciences, specifically political science, where we didn't have, as a Czech Republic, that much luck before. When I was trying to come up with an idea for this one, I tried to focus on coming up with a project where I can already present some kind of achievements in the broader area, but always show that there will be a new empirical, theoretical, as well as methodological contribution that would justify that I'm also bringing something new to the table. And I think the combination of these two things is critical. I feel that if I would come with something completely different, where I couldn't claim any expertise, it would be harder for me. At the same time, striking a right balance between these two things is not easy. This is just a quick sketch of my theoretical framework, and the reason why I'm showing it to you is that I don't really believe that it was the best, most elaborative framework I could come up with. Basically, my idea was to try to investigate or aim to investigate how individuals in allied countries form their attitudes toward collective defense, how these attitudes then become public opinion, which is influenced by elite and political discourse, and then how elite decision makers in these countries are taking into account political public opinion when they are deciding on collective defense. It's a fairly simple idea, and point one is that when I presented this theoretical framework, there were obviously a number of gaps, but what was a huge advantage, and I saw it in both the interview and also in the reviews, is that I was able to convey it very concretely, very specifically what I want to do, and for the reviewers to be able to track what I want to do. And this is one of the big problems that I see in many applications that I've been reviewing informally over the couple of past months, that many people have this very broad general idea, but they are not able to show very specifically how they want to apply them. So that would be maybe lesson number one that I had. It helped me to always present it in a way that was understandable and very easy to understand for basically anyone, even for people who were not directly from my field, which was the majority of the commission, obviously. This is another, I believe, a big advantage my project had, and what was positively reviewed is that I tried to come up with a methodological innovation that really sounds very persuasive in today's world. Basically, what we try to do is that previously I have been using survey experiments in my research, which mostly use text, and now we have a new approach where we used mixed media, videos, pictures, sound, to present our experimental scenarios more convincingly and realistically to the respondents. Again, it's nothing maybe shocking or groundbreaking, but if you frame it right, including ourselves when we try to show some picture from a pilot study, it kind of convey the idea, this is a new time to do this research. It wasn't possible to do it before for many reasons, for practicality, and now we can actually do it, and we are coming up with something new on the table. So this was another thing that I got a lot of nice response from the reviewers and also from some other ERC grantees who were so kind to give me some comments on my project. Another big advantage is that we really went high, I would say, or bold when it comes to the cross-national focus. I have previously done a lot of cross-national studies in many countries, and today these studies that are conducted in multiple countries at the same time are much easier to do and much cheaper than it was, for example, 10 years ago. So demonstrating that today we have tools to do these large-scale cross-national surveys for reasonable money, and we know how to do it, was another big plus. So we could demonstrate, okay, here's a big knowledge to be gained. Plus, and I cannot stress it enough, seems to me from all the discussions I had with, in both during the interview and from the reviews and from other ERC grantees, that it really matters a lot that the topic you are dealing is really contemporary. I mean, it's speaking to big issues that are being dealt with today. Many other colleagues that got ERC grants in my field, when I was going through their project and trying to see what they have in common, they were always trying to tackle some really big issues that we are facing today. So for me to connect the debates about collective defense, military alliances to what is happening in Ukraine and Taiwan and possibly other parts of the world, you know, the deteriorating of the security situation, that was a big win that basically got like almost everybody commenting. It makes a lot of sense to study it because, you know, all these things are happening right now. This is just a very quick sketch of how my plan was for individual members of the team. I try to, in the proposal itself, I try to really justify like the inclusion of every single member of the team. For example, when it comes to the PhD student, I reserved enough time for the hiring process to get this open position filled, and so that we don't have to rush this at the very beginning. At the same time, leaving, for example, enough time at the end of the PhD study for the student to work on his or her dissertation. So these were like quite some details that I went with when I was trying to justify the team and also the money that I would be giving them. And again, this was something that was quite appreciated in the reviews I've got, that I was trying to think systematically about how to involve members of the team. By the way, there were some questions before about named and unnamed positions. In this diagram, it's all unnamed, but in the project proposal, there was actually one position which was already assigned to a person, so it was already named. There was no issue with that whatsoever. This is the budget. Again, like one piece of experience that I could share is that some people at the very beginning, when I was presenting it to some colleagues, had doubts if the number of the amount that I'm dedicating to survey experiments isn't too high. As you can see, it's 350,000 euro, which is a really big part of the budget. It's very unusual in my field because in my field usually most of the budget goes to personal costs or travel. Because if you are doing field work, you know, somewhere globally. In my case, I basically took the risk. I tried to justify, like, not to the detail of every single experiment, but more like what countries I want to involve, how big these experiments are, how I calculate the price of a single experiment. And again, there was no problem, and there was like basically not a single review that would say that the budget is overblown or that I should move any part of it to something else. I was told that this will be sent to you later, so this is just like I wanted to provide a quick overview of what it means to write a ERC grant. Basically, for me, it was like a one-year story from coming up with the first idea, basically thinking about proposing ERC grant and deciding to do so, to the moment when I submitted the grant, and then another year to the moment when the grant agreement was signed. So it was quite a long story. I have made some comments that, you know, during this journey, there were a lot of critical comments that I received by my project, a lot of very harsh feedback, some of it actually very useful and that helped me to revise my project, some of it not that useful. Very often I heard pieces of advice which were like, if you mention this single word, your project will not be funded. So my very important piece of advice, never trust these advices. I mean, I don't really believe that the fate of your future ERC proposals is hanging on one single word. I have never heard from any person that actually reviewed it that this would be the case. It's really about conveying a good story, showing them that you are competent. And of course, I did spend a lot of time thinking about almost every single word in the proposal itself, but I don't think that the story of the grant is really about one single term and about repeating high risk, high gain 20 times per your proposal. I think it's more about showing that you are actually, providing a high gain in this particular project. This is just for your information how, just from a small excerpt from the evaluation report. I would say that when you see these two criteria, research project and principal investigator, both of them seem to be super important. There were a lot of comments about my academic career, about my previous achievements, and in both the panel report and also in the reviews, it seemed to have a lot of weight. So I definitely wouldn't underestimate it. Sometimes I hear some colleagues who say that this aspect is now, let's say, less relevant. It may be in the broader picture, but my experience is that it still carried a lot of weight. Like there were a lot of reviewers referring to previous publications, including, for example, mentioning specific journals where I published. So it's not definitely a taboo to refer to this by other reviewers. The interview, if I still have time, again, you probably heard it before, each panel has a very different format. In my case, it was a 3-minute presentations without any slides, then 22 minutes interviews. I spent about 1 month preparing for the interview, about 1 hour per day. So it was like I had like a schedule to work on, and test, try, get feedback, and try it also for myself so that I feel comfortable. Altogether, I had 4 mock interviews. I also attended 1 TC workshop and a couple of more presentations and feedback sessions that helped me to improve it. I was changing my presentation until almost the last day, all the time, constantly. I would say that what's really critical, and this was my experience that I would stress to every single person, is to have a really good technical setup, proper room, audio-visual testing, perfect internet connection. This really helped me to be calm during my interview because I tested it many times before and I saw that there was no problem. There was an IT guy behind the doors in case there would be any problem. We had a backup internet in case the one that I was using would not be working. And by the way, the best advice I have ever got, and I recommend it to every single person, would be to stand when you're doing the interview. It's such a huge difference to be standing and speaking rather than sitting. I tried it at the beginning, just like sitting on the chair and, not knowing what to do with my hands. It was so unnatural. I'm a teacher, I'm teaching at the university, and obviously I'm used to stand and speak. And this was, when I started doing my trials, my mock interviews, standing, it was so much more natural, and I just felt better doing the interview. So I would definitely use this advice if you can. Plus, another really good piece of advice I got was to cut and cut and cut my presentation to almost half that I envisioned originally. My final presentation was over 400 words, and honestly, I wouldn't go over this limit of 440. This was the only way how to allow some pauses in my speech and how to make it sound more natural. And again, you can really fit a lot of stuff into 440 words. It's a lot of work, but it really paid off. And yeah, like the last point I have, like I believe that I would never get it without collaboration with others. I mean, of course, the responsibility is always mine, and if I would fail, I wouldn't blame it on anyone else. But in my case, it was super useful for me to attend various workshops. I organized a number of presentations, mock interviews. I believe I didn't overdo it. I mean, it wasn't like I would do 20, but those that I did were super useful. I get a lot of feedback I never thought of, like a lot of ideas that were hard for me to come up with myself. I worked with a couple of ERC grantees who were really kind to share their projects basically without any problem and give me feedback on my project. Some colleagues from abroad who gave me a little bit different perspective than colleagues from my university. So overall, when I was counting it, there were like 35 people who attended my presentations or gave me written feedback, and I believe that was quite a good number that I was working with. It was super useful. And I look forward to your questions, comments, suggestions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now we will have the last of 3 PIs online. Petr, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hope you guys can hear and see me as well.
Perfect. Yes, the connection works. So the floor is yours. We are looking forward.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Petr Těšina. I'm from CEITEC Masaryk University. I hope the connection will be good because it was a little bit laggy. Okay, let me start with introducing myself very briefly. Okay, So I did my PhD at the IUCB in Prague, doing structural biology, and after that I moved to Munich, where I spent almost 7 years working mostly on cryo-EM of co-translational surveillance processes. And since last year I have a junior PI position at CEITEC Masaryk University, which is basically mostly buying and unpacking stuff. But anyway, this is my ERC starting grant, which was awarded last year. It's called Neuroquality, but I won't talk about the science since we are supposed to be talking about this stuff, basically, which is how to write a competitive proposal, right? Which is, of course, driven by what is evaluated in an ERC project. So the excellence is the sole evaluation criterion, they say, and it relates to both the research project and the principal investigator. So I guess we all know these. We don't have to go deep into that. But what does it mean? I will talk basically about my path and maybe some, hopefully, little bit more general tips. So what is it? What about the competitive project? One thing I would like to mention is that because there's a lot of prejudice and misinformation about this, you really don't need Nature Cell Science papers. You need a good, project with this groundbreaking potential, let's say, or frontiers research. It's really not required to have the best publications possible. It has to be ambitious and excellent, of course, but how to achieve that? So what helped me really to do this sort of naturally, it's not a general rule or anything like that, but what really helped me to achieve this sort of naturally was to have some sort of a relevant area with like real life impact potential. That was good for me. And another thing that really helped me to achieve this easily sort of is to offer some sort of methodology advancement, because that naturally opens new horizons in research. If you develop a new methodology or a new combination of methodologies, this can, of course, then be adopted, let's say, in the field and applied to other problems. And I think it's also helpful to sort of go out of your comfort zone a little bit. It was mentioned already, you don't really want to just continue what you were already doing. It's good to expand a little bit. You need to, study, of course, like a new field, let's say, and be ready for mean questions. But I think it's really nice if you can also show the capacity to also step out of your comfort zone a little bit. So about my path to ERC, it actually started quite some time ago already. It took me, I think, well over 2 years to sort of develop some project, because I started with an attempt to move like completely out of my field, and I failed miserably, but like in a good way as well, because it meant a lot of critical feedback, which proved very useful. What I really needed a lot was like support from institutions. So I would like to name CEITEC Masaryk University, and of course the Technology Center Prague and their courses, which are great and amazing. And what was really crucial was finding mentors. And I think I will mention this a few times because it's one of the things I really want to stress, and that's really crucial. What is also crucial is training. There's a lot of training involved, especially for the second round, right, for the interview. And mentors, again, we don't have that many successful ERC grantees at a senior level, let's say, potential mentors, because of the relatively low success rate. But you really need to find mentors. They don't have to be, Czech, but people who know how to deal with this grant scheme. I also had some professional training. I'm actually showing the particular company. This is not a paid advert. It's just to mention that professional training is also great. I really appreciated this a lot. This was for the interview part, where we actually tend to underperform as Czech candidates, let's say. Because statistically, when you make it to the round 2, your chances are actually quite high. Statistically speaking, it should be around 40% even. And we tend to get quite a lot of candidates to the second round, especially at least judging from what I could see. But there we tend to somehow underperform. And this can be caused either by the quality of the B2 itself or the interview, which would be my guess, because we are not really trained during our career to deliver these specifically tailored presentations, let's say. So this is what I just mentioned, the second round. So your chances are really high there, but it's the most stressful and maybe difficult part. And also you will get very easily, you will get contradicting advice from your mentors or peers when you do these mock interviews. So this is where the professional training from people actually experienced in the work of the panels and evaluating and so on was really crucial. So the science, what do you need to do to get the scientific part, let's say, in general? So you need to practice developing your research ideas in writing, for sure. That helps. You need to think big. You need to ask something, big, ambitious, and important that you probably know. At the same time, the proposal has to be, or the project has to be feasible, right? So that's the catch-22. It has to be crazy ambitious yet feasible. So preliminary results are the way to go there. That really helps a lot. And again, finding mentors. I really want to stress this throughout the presentation. So that's really crucial, I would say. Also, what is really important and not to be underestimated is finding the host institution, meeting the people, finding some synergy with your research, like, which institute offers the best equipment for you to carry out this research and so on. And I think something specific for the Czech environment is what I call the chicken and egg problem. Because oftentimes you will hear something like, yeah, if you get the ERC, we will happily, take you in, then you're welcome. But it doesn't work like that. You need to have the host institution first, right, to apply. So that's something specific. And therefore you need to start very early because you will also have other obligations, working on the proposal. Such as work as a postdoc or whatever, and family. You need to get a lot of training, again, training. And you need to gain the interview fitness. So doing mock interviews, getting feedback from your mentors, and not just scientists, I would like to say. I think it really helps to get this corporate approach as well. Because this is something what people from big corporations get trained in much better than we do, I would say. It's this idea of getting 5 minutes, to convince the executive board or CEO or whoever. And you have to be, spot on, present this little diamond of a presentation, so that in the first 2 minutes, the problem and the solution is really clear, crystal clear to everyone. You need to cut out, all the redundancy and really make a razor sharp focused presentation so that you can make this and get the message across convincingly within like 5 minutes time. So it's something very specific. Which we are not usually trained for. And of course, don't underestimate the B2, because if the peer reviews are bad, then you cannot really save it with the presentation. So that's focusing on round 2 again. Yeah, from getting the ERC, you'll be presented with another set of problems, which I also wanted to mention a little bit. So we will also need help from mentors and host institution and grant office. There's specific training and support for these ERC grant applications. And yeah, I mentioned this. And what I really appreciated was help of some specific offices at CEITEC. So we have this quite well worked out. To conclude, you of course need a competitive CV to make it for the round 2. You need to have this ambitious frontiers research project. You need to have a host institution, in time. And you will need a lot of help from your peers, mentors, and the host institution. And yeah, I hope that we will address this underperformance of Czech candidates in round 2 with Zdeněk. We have something in mind to target this because I think people need specific training to succeed in this format of the round 2 interview. And a little bit of institution promotion. We do open calls for new PIs at CEITEC Masaryk University, which is great. And next open call will be next year. So give it a go. There's a lot of support you can get as an ERC candidate, and I can really recommend. So that will be from me. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Petr, I don't know if you could hear the applause, so thanks a lot. And now we have the time for questions. So I'm asking the audience now, do you have any question you would like to raise? Yes, we have one question.
So I think some of you have already touched on that a little bit, but I would like to again ask you, can you essentially describe the process, how we were thinking between striking the balance of this very ambitious project on one hand, and still being feasible, and you being the right person to do it?
Striking the balance. I mean, the proposal has to have all of these ingredients, in my opinion. It definitely has to be ambitious and frontiers research. At the same time, they will, of course, check for feasibility, like at least regarding your approach. And of course, it helps tremendously if you can already present some sort of feasibility with preliminary data. And yeah, I think it has to all be there. These are all ingredients of a successful proposal. You also have to be the right person to do it, and you have to be able to convince them that you're the right person to do it. So yeah, sorry, not much of a great advice, but I'm afraid it has to all be there in the proposal, yeah, or presentation.
Thank you, Petr. Any other opinion from the PIs?
I can comment on my experience. Sometimes, so we think as ambitious as something that will revolutionize everything, but very often is, in my case, I think was a proposal that addressed issues in my field of research, and that I could give reasons why it would work in terms of feasibility. But at the same time, then, well, maybe the ambition is, as I said, is, well, I'm developing this because in the future, down the road, perhaps it's very unlikely, but in 30 years from now, like a pharmaceutical will be found based on this research, and it might be enough. So addressing your field of research, I would say, is the first step, and it's ambitious enough.
Just to start, and this is maybe where the fields may be slightly different. In my field, I would have a huge problem is using the term preliminary results in your proposal. I wouldn't use it in my field at all. I would use something like a pilot study or plausibility probe. Preliminary results, at least in my field, indicate something much more developed, and that would be like a red light that the person actually already worked on this for some time and is trying to sell something they have already worked on. So I would go with pilot study, plausibility probe, or something like that. That can actually help in my view. I did some like very small pilot study, which in my case would be like a small scale experiment on one single question out of different ones, and just to see, for example, the method that I'm trying to use is even like practically feasible. So that was actually very convincing, and I got a good feedback on that. But more general, yeah, there is. It's hard to strike this balance. That's obvious. What I did, or what I was trying to do through the whole process, was that at every point I was at least able to show the process, how I have it in my mind, or how I can get to the end result, right? So it wasn't too broad, too general. That kind of suggested that if all these pieces fall like properly, actually get to a result, right? So that I was able to describe this process. Like very often when I was attending some other mock interviews, these candidates basically came up with like very general, broad ideas that they will be able to revolutionize the field, but when they were asked on like a specific process how to get there, they were more like, yeah, I will eventually get there, right? I mean, if I do it right, and if I collect a lot of data, I will spend a lot of time, I will eventually get there, and this is not very convincing to me. So I would at least have in mind like the ideal process where I can get there. Obviously, everybody understands that since this is like a frontier research, that you can get into a lot of troubles, right? And part of your proposal should be a risk assessment where you, or at least this is what I did, right? To provide like outline of different risks that I can encounter and how to address them. But to show the idea of the process, I think can be very helpful. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I didn't really, use too many of these like catchy keywords, but I was trying to show, for example, how this project can have like a both methodological but also empirical and theoretical contribution that would be really substantial. For example, there's like this question that we have sometimes as an example question, right? I mean, if this would be, your project would be successful and there would be like a textbook about a project in a couple of years, how it would be commented on, right? And if they would be commented more like, this really changed the field, this changed our idea of how these things works, I believe that's very useful. Or if you are able to persuade them that they are basically starting a new research agenda, right? That doesn't mean it's like a new field, but more like a new research agenda in your field. That's, for example, when I was thinking about it, was like to demonstrate that if I do this, there can be like, 100 more people that can use my approach to study something similar or slightly different, right? Or they can continue what I do, using alternative methods, right? Or something like that. And I think that was also quite appreciated. It was basically not just saying that this can open a new research agenda, but show how this can, this can be used and this can continue forward. It's not like a closed project, but more like a new avenue for research.
Thank you. I can see another raised hand.
Thank you. I would like you to elaborate on the problem of writing for two separate audiences, one being the generalists and the other being the people from your specific field. So did you feel pressured in any way to tailor somehow, to skew your research in order to make it more obviously relevant to people from other disciplines than your own?
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to answer or if you guys moved on.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. I didn't really feel that pressure, I have to say. Like, the introduction has to be, let's say, a little bit tailored, and I was cutting it down significantly, like the state of the art, I mean. But I didn't really feel any sort of pressure to make it very, very accessible.
So, I didn't feel pressure, but I felt it was challenging to address. So to be more practical, what I did was that, well, half of my B1 was very general, something that I think most of the panel would understand most of it. But the other half was pretty specific because I felt that there's always been members in my exact field of research, and these, after all, would be the first people that I have to please, because they would get also proposals specifics in the field, and they would select, and they will eventually have to fight for your proposal. So then I felt that it was challenging to have a balance. And when speaking with people that were helping me from other fields of research, they were not happy with the part that was specific, but I went for it. But yes, so I try to have a balance, half and half. Again, I think that the general overview was more or less general, but then the how to do it was very specific and driven towards the specialists.
Yeah, I felt a lot of pressure, to be honest, in this issue, especially when I look at the composition of my panel in the previous years. So in my case, I'm a political scientist, and there were only like half of the panel were political scientists. The other half are international lawyers, which use different methods. They have different standards for research, different ideas about how to conduct good research, right? So it was only about half of the panel, and from these, I'm using statistical methods through experiments, and majority of already like half of this panel were using qualitative methods, which again have like different ideas about how to do what I do, right? So that would be forcing me to justify it to this crowd. Plus, when it comes to like more specific issues in international security, my sub-field, I mean, there was maybe one person out of the whole panel. So that was challenging, and I put a lot of effort into making it understandable and convincing to, let's say, a qualitative researcher in the field of political science, and to explain this person that this makes a lot of sense. Again, I don't know how important it was. Ultimately, I believe it was maybe less, maybe stressed too much, because then during the process I found out that, yeah, I mean, there will be reports they will be building on, which were written by specialists, so they will have something to work with. My panel was super competent. There were like 5 people asking questions, so they were taking turns. Some of them asked even 2 or 3 times. It was super fast, like very fast questions. The questions were all about method or theory, and they were all fairly competent. So ultimately, it didn't matter probably that much, but I still believe that I would spend some time on making sure that someone from a different, still scientist, but from a different field could be persuaded. And I did spend a lot of time of ensuring that, for example, the abstract is convincing to this person from the start. And this is what I also tried during my mock interviews, that I sometimes invited colleagues that used completely different methods or were from slightly different fields. And they were giving me this feedback if it's still understandable for them, right? If I was going too much into jargon or some specific, my field-specific issues or method-specific issues, they were usually saying, okay, I don't know if this is relevant. I don't know if you are trying to, bullshit me or not.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I will have to close this session because we ran out of time. So thanks a lot for sharing your experience, both here and online. And now we will do a quick shake-up. And I would like to invite Pavel Tomančák to come here, because we will open another session, which is called How is an ERC Proposal Written Abroad? So thanks a lot. We will run just in one line. You can come here, and if it's comfortable.
I'm visible, yes. Okay.
Pavel, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. So I was asked to talk about, how the, let's say, process of preparation for securing ERC funding works abroad, and I will be speaking about an institution which I spent 20 years at, which is the Institute of the Max Planck Society. So I'm a biologist, and I work in Dresden at the Max Planck Institute for Molecular Cell Biology and Genetics. And yes, I mean, we are an institution which is, has a pretty good track record of success in securing ERC grants on every level, starting from the starter grants, consolidator, advanced grants. We have tried several times. So far, I haven't gotten a synergy grant, but that's, it's hard. So, I think, I don't know how revealing this is going to be, because, at the Max Planck Society, there actually is essentially no formal training for writing a grant, and definitely nothing specific for the ERC. What I think is really behind the success is the whole setup of these institutions, and the culture of mentoring, which at least some of those institutions, including mine, are really developing over the years, right? So, the people who apply for ERC grant from our institutions, they are, in my opinion, successful because they are battle-hardened people who have experienced, the pressure of writing, of having to formulate their ideas and having to defend them, many times throughout their career, and in particular when they came to our institute. But it starts much before that, right? I mean, usually we hire people who come from, institutions which have a similar value systems, and so the young people who come from those institutions, they have already been exposed to pushback. They had to give a lot of talks. They were asked difficult questions, and they were part of a culture which develops these kind of skills in people, and we get them. We see them when they already know a lot, right? Then those people also, they don't apply only to us. They apply to tens, in the United States, to hundreds of institutions. And if they are good, they get to many interviews, right? So if they really want to come to us, it's recommended, that they hold interviews before at 3-4 other institutions, so that, when you go to the institution where you really want to get a job, your talk is perfect, right? And so these people actually, have that experience, and they come, as a very complete package, very smooth, very in control, very able to defend what they are talking about. And this is already at the time, where they have not started working at our institution. Now once they start work at our institution, this sort of, I mean, I don't want it to sound negative, but this pressure continues, right? We have every week on Friday, we have chalk talks, where one of the PIs presents what they are going to be working on. We are a new person at the institution. I mean, okay, you have kind of convinced us that your research direction is a good one, but now it comes really like, okay, you are here for half a year, so what is it really going to be? Like really, at some point nitty-gritty detailed, and at the other point, what is the big question? I mean, when I was starting at this institute, I was sick of the question, what is your question? I've been asked that question over and over, right? So, but, when you look at it back, 20 years now, it has really helped me to focus on what is important in then the process of securing funding like the ERC, which is, really know what is your question, what is your goal, what is the importance of it, and how you want to get there. So I think these are really the ingredients, which for us, work very well. There are many other venues how we actually do it, retreats and so on. And there's this constant flow of information between people. I sometimes say, in an institution where the information flow is working very well, if somebody gets invited to a conference and falls sick, somebody from the institution should be able to step in and give the talk, right? because you need to know what the other people are doing. And if you are in an environment where such communication is happening, I mean, you are already more or less ready for whatever the ERC is going to throw in your direction, right? Now, people at Max Planck, you know, the ERC is not their existential thing. They have core funding, but you know, they either want to realize big idea for which they need more resources, or more kind of on a mechanistic career level. They know that it's good for them to have the ERC stamp on their CV, so they want to get it for the prestige, right? I mean, maybe one should not do it like that, but you know, we are humans, and it is the reality, right? And so the initiative to go for the funding comes from the people. They want to write the application, and they write it, right? You know, they are absolutely encouraged to share the application with their colleagues, especially the senior colleagues or colleagues who have experience writing such applications, or colleagues who are on the panels and have the experience. And they absolutely do, right? In fact, you know, if you send this application, you know, and you don't tell anybody, and then you don't get it, you know, then you are criticized. You said, like, why didn't you show us what you proposed? We could have helped you, right? So to the point, you know, that the mentors are actually approaching the mentees, saying, are you writing this here an ERC grant? You know, if you do, please send it to me, right? It's not like that the mentee comes begging, you know, could you please, you know, look at my grant. It's the mentors who has responsibilities to make sure that the people who have less experience, you know, can benefit from their, let's say, accumulated experience. I also want to say that it always happens, right? I mean, it's good to throw your net very wide because people are busy and less organized, and maybe you don't get the feedback from everyone, but this feedback is very useful, right? We then also do mock interviews and things like that, but nevertheless, you know, I have to say that in Germany, I'm not aware there is any, you know, massive formal nationwide, let's say, training for surviving ERC, the ERC process, right? So everything is kind of happening more from within the institutions, and you have to be lucky enough that you are in an institution where the culture is such that people really care about this and are trying to help you. One thing which we do on a formal level is to kind of, you know, try to help the people who are in the institution and trying to secure a job elsewhere, right? So our postdocs are typically quite ambitious. They want to continue in academia. They do send the job applications. They do write ERC grants. And so what we organize kind of on the, let's say, not completely director level, but the senior research group level, we organize a simulation of the process. We ask our postdocs to put together an entire application for a chosen university. We even identified that university. I mean, on their topic, they have to they can put together their entire package. They send it to us. We form a committee and we simulate the whole process. We read the application. We write reviews for it. We give them feedback. We interview them. We kind of make the fake decision. You know, would you be hired or not? And then we give them feedback what you did wrong. One of the best things which happens during these kind of, let's say, simulations is like if you ask someone who has never given a chalk talk to do it the first time, what they draw on the blackboard is usually not presentable. It's something which stays in the room when people are deciding whether or not to give that person the grant. So we usually tell the people, now turn around, step few steps back and look at what you did, right? So this is just a little kind of anecdote of what can happen, right? So I think this training is a really ongoing thing, and you know, it is absolutely possible. I also want to say, you know, that the people from our Max Planck who apply for ERC grants, I mean, it is littered with failures, right? I mean, I know one colleague who applied 3 times and got it the 4th time, right? Some people apply 2-3 times, never get it, right? So there's no guarantees, right? But really the culture of the institution and the system of mentoring and the kind of the motivation, you know, to engage in this kind of mentor-mentee relationship, in my opinion, is kind of very much behind our success, which is kind of reasonable, not out of this world, but reasonable. I don't know if that's could that be enough?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You can sit next to me, and we have another PI also from abroad, currently in France, online. His name is Martin Vohralík. And can you hear us, Martin?
Yes, I can hear you. Is it the same for you, please? Do you hear me?
Yes, the connection is very good. Do you have a presentation you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I did it already, so hopefully you'll see it.
We can't see your presentation yet.
Yeah, from my side, it tells me I'm well sharing the screen. Let me try once again. Okay. Yeah, is it better now?
Not yet. So please try once again. Or you can just speak without. Right, it's on our side. Just a second. So we have a bit of technical break. Our technicians just wait a second. They can see it, but it's a complicated technical setup here, so we need to figure it out. Yes, we can already see your presentation. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Pretty happy to be back in Prague, at least virtually. Yeah, I'm happy to share my little personal experience with applying, and I put 2 slides. So, running or beginning of running an ERC, in my case, was a consolidated grant. So, yeah, I prepared my presentation. I would like to follow it, so that's why I'm happy we managed to share it. Well, just 1 slide. So I'm Czech. I did all my studies back in Prague. Then PhD that was between Prague and Paris, and then I had an occasion to run through 3 different institutions in France, more precisely in Paris. It was the French National Center for Scientific Research, the CNRS, a huge all branches of science institution. Then I've been working at the Sorbonne University, and since a couple of years now I'm an smaller size tailored institute for mathematics and informatics, Inria, and that's where I applied for the ERC. So I'm a mathematician. I work on partial differential equations, numerical analysis, scientific computing, and yeah, my ERC went for 5 actually with the pandemics for almost 6 years between 2015 and 2021. Yeah, I prepared a slide to just give you a slight flavor. You've probably heard about the idea to push at least some of the CO2 under the ground. Well, what I do on this is mathematics. So these kind of equations describe this problem. We want to simulate this on a computer, do numerical simulation, and then the project, well, this is the name of the project, and the two goals were be aware of how big is the error or precision we can achieve in our numerical simulation, and yeah, can we run the simulations faster? So this was just to give you an appetizer, but of course I would like to focus on how you write the proposal. Well, I'm joining a huge line of the previous talks. I'm joining essentially everything that has been said. You will hear some kind of repetition, but I think it's always good to stress. So I've organized the things in few subsections. What I do think is essential. This is essentially what you learn, what you read in the announcement of the ERC. My little personal translation, say, of the point 1. groundbreaking, it's a huge word. I think what it means that you need to have an excellent and a new idea, and I've especially crossed the S. I would say it should be rather one particular idea than a huge collection of little thoughts. And it was already said before, I completely join it. It's kind of not expected that it will be a continuation of what you did in some form or another already for a couple of years. I think personally, best thing, you have a new idea sometime, you start to explore it. When you have a small favor of it, you see it's really potentially something good. That's the right time to write your ERC, and you put this as your groundbreaking thing. Well, the second point, if I try to translate it in more accessible language, I think it's essentially just the question, how will it advance your field? I think it's really much more about your very specific field that has to be the heart of the project. You need to explain it in a way that all the others have some idea about it. But the project itself, I think it has to be focused. And that's really the peers, the community, your specific community, who I think needs to appreciate it. That's how the project can work. And the third one, I would say you need to start from the central, the key questions that are in your very particular field. These are those that are interesting. These are those that are important. These are those that are at the limit of the current knowledge. So I think that's kind of the starting blocks is this. Now, I put something which comes from my personal experience, wrong ways, it has been said. I completely aligned with it. What is not to be done, it's say, okay, the closure of the call is in 3 weeks, so let me now take 3 weeks and let me write down what I'm able to do and then submit it. In a sense, there's a guarantee it will not work, and there's a simple reason. Others spend more time, prepared better, and the competition is rough. So typically you will not do it with such an approach. Also the reading of the guide may take you time, but okay, it's limited number of pages, so should not skip just the reading. You, on contrary, should read it. Well, another thing which I believe is not to be done is kind of try to be independent, like work alone, just on your own, prepare something. No, this is not going to work. It has been said, you need to discuss with instances, the national contact point, your institution. But I completely align. It has to namely be discussed with your experienced colleagues, with people who have some experience about your specific science and about grants like the ERC one. So if I flip what I think are the good ways, once again, find colleagues who will read, and this in a repetitive way, your project you are constructing, and give you a feedback, give you a critical feedback, give you a constant feedback, shape the project with you, tell you if they see it's a good idea first, and if it's well written second. So this is on the scientific level, and kind of the same thing holds true on the administrative level with all the necessary parts in it. Well, personally, that was my big struggle. I was not too motivated to spend time on working on that part, but probably again the same thing applies. If you do not do and the others do the same also on the administrative level, the others may prepare a better project, and in a rough competition, this is what may make you lose. So again, you need to also spend the time on this. Well, in this block, we are supposed to be more specific about how things go abroad. So in the particular case of the French National Institute for Research in Informatics and Applied Mathematics, the Inria, we are rather human-sized institution. We are not of the size of the whole French National Center of Research. We are a couple of thousand in total, with all the levels from senior researchers to PhD students. but which works here. And I like what has been said by Pavel in the previous contribution. We've got a lot of people who have some kind of experience, and in particular people who are accepted to have as a vocation, as a job, being mentors. So their role is being mentors. And there are people who have seen, tens, even hundreds of proposals. This turned, in my case, to be super useful, and I do think it's a good way to go whenever you prepare your ERC grant. Yeah, one way is to speak about science with experienced colleagues, but one thing is to speak to someone who has seen really a huge number of proposals and can give you a super important feedback. Well, parts of it, you meet such a person regularly. He will help to shape you, kind of the structural points, like what percentage should go into introduction, what percentage is biblio. Make sure there's enough place for the heart for your project. You don't spend all the time on state of the art. One thing I learned personally from these advices, things at some point should be readable, some kind of attractivity in it. So pictures are always a good way. All disciplines, diagrams, and math algorithms, some interactivity. Make it readable. Be concrete. It's, I think, really important. It's not a blah blah. It's something super specific. And there's are many proposals, so should probably find a way to step out of the crowd. One other thing that has been stressed to me, and I do agree it should be super clear from your proposal what are the most important ideas or the idea and the challenges. So kind of organize it in a good way. So kind of this is structural things when you're writing the proposal down. And it has also been addressed in the previous contributions that one very specific part of the stage 2, if you make it, is the interview in Brussels. Well, I did it some time ago. In my case, we had 15 minutes to go. We did not have any external company. We are not trained by professionals, as it was mentioned by Petr previously. On the other hand, doing a lot of trial presentations in front of different publics. That's what is the culture here, and I completely join it. So you need to have scientific colleagues.
We have lost your presentation.
Inria or your personal institution mentor, someone who has seen a lot of talks and interviews. We had English language instructor being in the game. One specific thing for my panel, but I have a feeling it's close to the ones. There will typically not be someone really from your very specific branch, and there might be a few, like from a panel of 10, there may be, or 15, there may be 1 or 2 specialists who will like understand the essence. So I think that the presentation needs to reflect it. There has to be a kind of a part that is accessible for the whole panel and a part that goes more deeply into real scientific matter. And then these are a few points, maybe more personal. I think it's always good to be yourself, be into your project, because that's, you're submitting because it's your science, you like it, so be enthusiastic. Some of the things probably learn in these professional trainings, it's like many things go into your presentation, including, are you able to put a good emphasis? It's good to use Oreo time, but it's definitely not a good thing to run like crazy. That's for sure. It will not make a great presentation. And it has been said, I completely join. You kind of need to be ready for really super various questions from different horizons, specific or non-specific. And that's again one thing that typically learns if one does sufficiently many of these trial presentations. And one thing I would like to add, what I really like on ERC projects, even if you fail, I think it's super beneficial. At least it was in my case. I did not work the first time. And I felt that this was a great scheme for proposing some of the other like national research funding agencies, you typically get a scientific report, a referee one, but it might not be super deep. In my case, it did not work, but I still got 6 referee reports, all of them definitely written by the best specialist, completed to the point. And yeah, that's super helpful for you. You learn many things out of it, and yeah, can help you the next time. I've included 2 little slides on what also happens whenever potentially it works for you. So hopefully I still have time to show them to you. Yeah, so this is at least what happened to me. So you can make it to the newspaper. It was the last and first time for me to happen, something like this. Well,
Martin, unfortunately, we can't see your slides.
Some murder and some who stole millions, but okay.
So if there are no questions,